Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 356 of the Assorted Calibers podcast. The second podcast is a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd. With me tonight, I am joined by, in the entire world, the entire universe, the entire multiverse, and yesterday, today, tomorrow, and forever. I'm confused. Aaron Paulette! How you doing, Aaron?
I mean, you're always confused.
I mean, not wrong.
I do all right. How am I doing? I am strangely emotional for not having bad things happen today. So I don't know. I just feel like I've been through the ringer, but today's been pretty normal. So I don't know.
As they say, some days it's just not worth the effort to chew through the restraints.
I mean, that's true. This isn't even that bad. It's just, okay, I feel like I've been crying all day, but I haven't been. So, I don't know.
Well, Aaron, I am glad that you have not been crying all day.
Yeah, me too. I don't really have anything interesting or exciting to talk about, unfortunately. Just last week was. So, okay. This is mildly interesting. We're going to be getting solar panels.
Ooh.
Yeah. And the short version is that the main power company in Florida, Florida Power and Light, is basically subsidizing panels to be put on qualifying homes because the demand is going to keep getting bigger. And the idea is we're going to pay to put panels on the houses, and then we can passively collect all the sunlight energy that's the excess that's sold back to them. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool, and it's something that I have wanted to do as a prepper, but it was always stupid expensive, and Mom thought they were ugly. And I mean, to be honest, they're not attractive, but the gains in price reduction are really good. So we have gone through all the steps and we've signed all the permits, and now it's time for the company that is making the solar panels to install them. And that was a concern we have. They don't subcontract out to, local guys at the Home Depot. They actually have their own installers, which is nice. It's the company's called Freedom Forever, if you've ever heard of them. I hadn't, but apparently they're like the name brand in solar panels. They're kind of like the Walmart of solar panels. Mm-hmm. And so if everything goes well, we should have them installed in about 2 to 3 weeks, which is, well, okay, technically hurricane season started in June, but it really only gets bad in like September. So we'll see how it goes. And the way they explained it, the panels are rated such that if the panels peel off, it's very likely that the roof is going to come off too. So There's that, because I mean, the last thing we wanted was to get them installed and then a hurricane comes in and yanks the panels off. Mm-hmm. But they said, no, that's fine. And even if that does happen, they'll replace them. So cool. I mean, I don't know how much you know about solar panels, and I'm trying not to get into a huge diatribe on them, but the big problem with solar panels is the efficiency of them, because we have this thing called an atmosphere, which prevents the efficient transmission of heat from the sun to a panel. But we need that to live, obviously. And so the technology of solar panels, last time I checked, it was about 30% efficiency. The guy who came by said that they've squeezed it to about 35, and that's probably the best they're going to do for a long time, barring any sort of major technological change. At this point, it's just the panels getting smaller and cheaper and potentially more reliable. But hey, it's a free source of power in a place where the sun shines a lot. So, and installed free. So I see this as an absolute win-win.
Well, another thing that I will be very, very interested to see, especially hopefully if you don't, maybe you should start, is see how your AC bill is going as well, because all that energy that's getting turned into electricity is not getting turned into heat on your roof. And I will say that around here, actually, it's one of our banks and one of the branches of our bank. We have so many banks, but one of the branches of our bank and the local zoo have installed solar panels over their parking lot. And
oh yeah, that's smart.
I couldn't be happier because, I mean, number one, it bugs me when I see like a field with solar panels stuck in it. And it's one of those like, okay, but you know, you could either be growing food in that field or let it turn back into forest, and that itself would be doing a lot more environmental stuff. It wouldn't be making electricity, but you know, so maybe it wouldn't be as profitable. But either way, I don't like it. But putting it over something that actually Logan Airport has on their long-term parking deck, the top level is all covered in solar panels. And it's awesome because number one, it's not, you know, hurting any space. There's just open air over these things. And then two, like when we go to the zoo, well, when we come back out, our car isn't baking hot because it's been in the shade the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And that energy that was turning my vehicle hot is at least at a 30 to 35% rate is being converted to electricity. So it seems like a win-win-win. And I would wonder if, unless you have, do you have a white roof on your house, or is it a black roof?
Oh, it's white.
Okay. So that will, the effects may be minimal, in that instance, but for around here, it might in fact cool your house down quite a bit just because essentially you're shading your roof.
Yeah, because that's a major source of power drain. I think the air conditioner during the summer months is like, oh, that's an additional $100 right there.
And I assume this is the standard local grid style of solar panels where you do not have a backup batteries and transformers and that sort of stuff, so that when the hurricanes come through and knock the power out, it doesn't matter if the sun comes back out, you're not getting electricity.
Well, I mean, no, we don't get batteries because, I mean, they're paying for it. They want to harvest the electricity. They don't want us to.
Yep.
I mean, there might be ways to go around that probably violates a contract or something.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if during the day the panels might give us some degree of power, or if that would just be feeding into the empty grid. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember reading about during when the California had the high winds and they were shutting the power off, and people suddenly started complaining of we put solar panels on the roof of our house. How come we don't have power? And it's because it feeds into the disconnected grid. But either way, that's awesome. I know one of our neighbors had solar panels put on, and they're extremely happy with them. You know, both in the reduction to their electricity bill, but also they do get a little bit of money on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't quite paid for them yet, but they feel that it will eventually.
So how are you doing, Weer'd?
I'm doing pretty good. Not a whole lot to talk about, but I will say that I had a little daddy daughter day where my daughter wanted to buy some collectible item. I don't even know if it's a big deal or not. It's something she's been talking about a lot, and said that a friend of hers had bought one at Quincy Market in Boston, which is just Quincy Market in Faneuil Hall. It's a big tourist trap on the Boston seaport. And so we drove in. It's right by the aquarium. So we went to the aquarium. We found the collectibles. She was pretty sure they were counterfeit and were still costing a bit of money. And so decided against it, which again, I was actually super proud of her that she did just caved to her own stuff, then regret the buy. But we had a whole lot of fun walking around. And I will say I laughed out loud because on the back of a street sign in the seaport, there was in the logo of NPR, but it said FDT. And I'll let you figure out what those letters stand for. But whoever came up with that idea, you got a lol out of me.
I'm pretty sure the last two are the initials of our president.
That is correct.
Ah.
So I'm not particularly broken up by the defunding of NPR, but it's still, if you are, and that's something that's important to you, then that was a beautiful sticker. So let's move on to some news. So first up, this is something we've been talking about, but like now it is official. A bunch of different Second Amendment groups. Let's see, American Suppressor Association, the Firearms Policy Coalition, National Rifle Association, Second Amendment Foundation have filed suit against. They're filing it against the ATF directly, stating that the National Firearms Act is in fact illegal because there are federal laws in place that say you cannot have firearms registries, and that was challenged years ago. I'm not exactly sure when, but it was challenged quite a long time ago. But the overall statement was, oh, no, the NFA is not a firearms registry. The NFA is simply keeping track of firearms that are taxed at a different rate and making sure that the taxes are paid. And now that the big beautiful bill has removed the tax burden on several classifications of firearms, well, legally you have to have a tax stamp to have, say, a short-barreled rifle or a suppressor or a short-barreled shotgun or any other weapon. But the tax stamp costs $0, and so why does the government need to keep track of a tax that you didn't pay and didn't have to pay? So this will be a very interesting case to watch.
Yeah, I really don't have anything to add to this other than to wish them the best of luck.
And also, I hope in the case of the quote-unquote gun-friendly Trump administration that if, in fact, one of these courts does strike it down, that like the pistol brace rule, the ATF simply declines to accepts the ruling and declines to seek an appeal.
I mean, that would be refreshing.
It would be delightful. And this one's really on the lines of the process is the punishment. We talked about it, it was 5 years ago. There was a couple. We have also in full disclosure noted that they really aren't the greatest people in the world. But their names are Mark and Patricia McCloskeys, and they live in a palatial mansion in a gated community in St. Louis. And during the George Floyd riots, members of BLM smashed down the gate to their gated community and moved their protest through the neighborhood. And while they were there, Mark and Patricia stepped out onto their front stoop, him with a carry-handled AR-15. I believe it's a Colt. And she came out with, I think it's a Raven, but it's one of the Ring of Fire guns. And they were essentially standing guard. She ended up going out and like taunting the protesters and all that. It really wasn't the greatest of looks. The photo itself doesn't imply too much wrongdoing, but if you watch the videos, it could have been handled much better. I appreciate their discretion because due to castle doctrine, breaking down the gate would in fact justify lethal force against the protesters, though I would not want to be attempting to defend myself of mowing down a whole bunch of protesters that have entered into my neighborhood. But they have, the fire, they were charged with, I can't remember what they were charged with.
Some version of brandishing, yeah. I think. Here in the article, unlawful use of a weapon, which is vague.
Yeah. They never actually ended up going to trial because they got pardoned by the governor, and but I believe because of the pardoning.
You missed an important step because they can't be pardoned if they didn't get convicted. And so here's the thing. They pled guilty to lesser charges, second-degree harassment and fourth-degree assault, which is a misdemeanor. So they didn't go to trial, but they did plead guilty. And then that guilty verdict was expunged by the governor. It's a minor point, but I just could imagine a listener going, well, how could they be pardoned if they never went to trial? So that's how.
Yep. And so they were pardoned, but I can't remember exactly the red tape, and does it say in this article? But I know that there's some like red tape kind of catch-22 on why they weren't able to get their guns back immediately after essentially the charges were expunged. But they finally did, or at least Mark got the Colt back. I don't know what happened to the Raven. I don't think they care. Supposedly it was never functional. They used it in trials. Their lawyers, they used it in trials as some sort of, as an inert prop for demonstrating, whatever they might need an inert firearm to demonstrate with.
Which is great because she was demonstrating horrible trigger discipline, had her finger on the trigger, and then was looking in a direction different, like at a right angle to where the gun was aimed, and her stance is... I mean, you can say a lot of things about them, and one of the things I said was, just because it's legal doesn't mean it was the right or the smart thing to do. But at least Mark McCloskey, from this photo, has his finger off the trigger, and it's on the trigger guard. So he had better trigger discipline than she did.
And I believe it was understood that his gun, in fact, was indeed loaded. And actually, if you look closely at some of the photographs, you could see that there's at least one out of the 30-round magazine in his pants pocket. So she was just for show. He was ready if action needed to be taken.
Mm-hmm.
But they finally got the gun back, and there's a lesson to be learned on this if you are going to carry a firearm or use a firearm for home defense or all of that stuff, don't have it be the family heirloom or the super ultra collectible item. Definitely never have a gun as a social gun, as they say, that you wouldn't mind never seeing again. Because of course here in Massachusetts, there's also there's been a few instances where the firearm disappears and it takes months or years to get the court to finally get them to return it when no wrongdoing is found. And finally, when it push comes to shove, the evidence locker is empty. I don't know what happened to it. And the answer is that somebody within the police force said, "That's a nice one. I'm taking that home."
Well, I mean, we've heard that before. It's not just that particular city or state. There will be guns that have been seized, and for whatever reason, oh, this is nice, especially if it's rare, and then it just disappears. Okay, and of course, if it's not nice, and sometimes terribly if it is, they'll just, throw it, sometimes literally, into a locker. And so if you've got a really nice stock and you finally get it back, it's banged and gouged. And I mean, Masada Ayub has just this entire rant on when your guns are taken from you, the police do not care. And if you get them back, they are very likely to be damaged, and not just cosmetically, but, covered in rust. So, according to this, it took, 5 years and 3 lawsuits, 2 trips to the Court of Appeals, and 1,847 days, but he finally got the AR back. And so this wasn't about the gun. This was about sending a message. Mm-hmm. Because he spent way more than the value of that rifle. And so it was a case of, I'm a lawyer. I have the time. I will make a point of this. And to be fair, that's a level of petty that I aspire to.
Yeah, there is certainly that. I mean, you certainly get to a point of, there's definitely been instances where I have been wronged to a certain degree and have been in a place where, I could file a lawsuit, and the maximum possible award for the lawsuit is going to be considerably less than both the value of my time and court fees and various stuff to actually get to go through. But at the same time, sometimes that's worth it. I mean, we see, we heard many instances in the what led to the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act, many gun companies settling with the ATF when they were, or the anti-gun groups or whoever was filing the lawsuits, that they were complicit in a violent crime because somebody was misusing their firearm. I can't fault them because it's not my money that they're using to fight these cases where, you know what, just pay them off and get them to dismiss the lawsuit, and that'll actually be cheaper than what it would cost to actually get the suit dismissed. But at the same time, you're also getting court precedents. Why we were so upset when Remington paid off the victims of the Sandy Hook Elementary was one of those, like, come on, guys. Like, all right, I get it. You want to take this monkey off your back. But on the other hand, you've just told the anti-gun groups that they can sue. And speaking of lawsuits, Aaron, a jury just found the 320 defectively designed, though it was in a lawsuit where an injured police officer received no damages.
Okay, so I'm going to say this to all the men listening. Don't look up what happened to him. You'll be happier that way. Also, anyone who winces in sympathy, just know that the police officer had his department 320, and he was carrying it improperly. It was not holstered, and he tucked it into the front of his pants, as Weer'd calls it, Mexican carry style. And then it discharged and hurt him. And so he sued. And this, to me, is a very interesting verdict, because while SIG did win this may be winning the battle but losing the war. And so the jury judgment here is, well, he was carrying the gun improperly, and so he doesn't deserve any money. But they also declared that the SIG P320 is dangerous and defective. And so now that's court precedent. And even without weighing in on the side of SIG is right or SIG is wrong, when you've got a court precedent saying your product is dangerous and defective, that's bad. And then you add that to all of the other bad press and the accumulation of data about uncommanded discharges with the SIG P320. And I hate making predictions because I've made predictions before and they've all been wrong. But this seems like the kind of thing that SIG can't recover from. I mean, they could if they ate a whole bunch of crow and recalled the 320, but their actions up to this point have made it clear they're not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So
and even if they do it right away, the question will be, why did it take you this long?
Yeah. And like we talked about last week, there is the damage to their reputation. When you've got departments, and by the way, as a result of this, the Cambridge Police Department no longer issues SIG P320s to its police officers. They've switched to another pistol. And so when you've got people like that who are deciding, well, should we keep this gun that now has all this baggage with it, or should we get something else? They are most likely going to go with the public perception that this is unsafe. And so, to me, the SIG P320, regardless of whether or not it has a mechanical problem, it has an institutional problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how SIG will get out of it, or if they will.
Yeah, time will tell. But yeah, this is gonna be. We'll be talking about this case again in the near future. I can tell. I mean, there's no way it's not going to be cited either in a future lawsuit or in future policy decisions. But yeah, this is bad news for SIG. And I also wanted to really, maybe even to be a little bit petty, wanted to point out. So this is actually a little bit of a dig that Xander gave, or a little bit of a pun that Xander was making to me. Was he was asking me if the SIG 320 was on the Massachusetts handgun safety roster. And in fact, it is. And so, I mean, obviously the joke, and I say it a lot in handgun radio, but he was, oh, weird. Do you have an X? And I'll say, or are you going to get an X? And I'll say that isn't safe in Massachusetts. And the biggest one is the fact that Glocks are unsafe for sale in Massachusetts. And so I cannot buy a Glock here in Massachusetts unless was before the handgun safety roster was initiated. And but of course, Glocks are pretty darn safe. A lot of people trust with them. And certainly that's been something that people have been saying with this 320 stuff is these guns are going off in holsters and causing all that. Well, if it's just improper handling and all that, why is this not happening nearly as much to Glocks? Because the 320 is very popular, but I don't think it's as popular as the various Glock pistols. But we have a very popular and very safe pistol that is unsafe for Massachusetts sale. But now it appears that we have a very unsafe pistol, but it's been declared safe per Massachusetts sale. So, common sense gun control laws, folks.
Those words don't belong together.
No, they do not.
But words that do belong together, barrel length and velocity. David is here to explain how and why.
Hi, and welcome to Gun Lovers and Other Strangers. Regular listeners have almost certainly heard Weer'd talk about the benefits of shooting 10mm out of a 16-inch barreled carbine. So in this segment, I'd like to talk about the effect of barrel length on velocity. For any given load in a particular caliber, the quote-unquote best barrel length can change. This is because the burn rate of the powder, weight of the bullet, and combustion gas produced will all vary. In order to get the most out of these details, empirical testing is required. Ballistics by the Inch, arguably the best online reference for this kind of information, has sadly ceased updating. As of September 1st, 2020, it has been switched to archive status. They are no longer running additional tests or adding new data, but they do intend to maintain the existing information and website. The data they have collected is extremely valuable. For each caliber and load tested, the muzzle velocity in feet per second for a range of barrel lengths, usually from 2 inches through 18 inches, is listed. Starting with Weer'd's beloved 10mm, the velocity range is from a low of 912 feet per second, shooting a 200 grain Hornady XTP out of a 2-inch barrel, up to a high of 1,711 feet per second, shooting a 135 grain Corbon jacketed hollow point out of a 17-inch barrel. Generally, velocity increases as barrels get longer, but beyond a certain point, velocities start to drop again. This is because the volume of the barrel exceeds the propellant gas produced by that particular load, and friction starts to overcome imparted velocity. Sticking with 10mm and looking at a fairly standard load, Federal 180 grain hollow points, the optimal barrel length seems to be in the 13 to 16 inch range with velocities around 1,220 feet per second. There are a couple of blips in the data, but those values are pretty solid. Moving to another favorite, 45 ACP, and Federal 230 grain standard pressure hollow points, these top out at nearly 1,000 feet per second out of a 16-inch barrel, compared to around 850 from a 4-inch barrel. Since AR pistols are pretty popular these days, let's look at 5.56, aka 223 Remington. A 55 grain full metal jacket maxes out the list in an 18-inch barrel with a velocity of nearly 3,000 feet per second. That same load in a 10-inch barrel clocks in at barely over 2,600 feet per second, a velocity loss of almost 400 feet per second. While not listed on the Ballistics by the Inch website, heavyweight subsonic 300 blackout loads have entirely different velocity curves from their lightweight supersonic cousins. For subsonics, optimal barrel length seems to be somewhere between 8 to 12 inches for shots within 100 yards. Beyond that distance, subsonic 300 blackout loads can benefit from barrels up to 16 inches long. Supersonic 300 blackout cartridges are able to take advantage of longer barrels and become less efficient in shorter ones. Whenever comparing two loads, make sure it's an apples-to-apples comparison. Even the difference between a 4 and 5-inch pistol barrel can affect velocity noticeably. For example, returning to Ballistics by the Inch, on the 9mm page, a Federal 115 grain jacketed hollow point reaches 1,094 feet per second in a 4-inch barrel, but 1,166 feet per second in a barrel 5 inches long, a difference of just over 70 feet per second with a very small change in barrel length. So far, I've only talked about cartridges shot from semi-automatic firearms. Revolvers have an additional characteristic to take into consideration, referred to as cylinder gap. This is the space between the front of the cylinder and the base of the barrel. When a cartridge is fired in a revolver, a certain amount of gas will escape through this aperture. Since this dimension can vary, sometimes considerably, it adds to the complexity of measuring velocity consistently across platforms. I'll discuss cylinder gap in more detail in a future segment. Generally speaking, nearly all cartridges benefit from longer barrels. Optimum length will vary based on numerous factors, not the least of which is intended use. A pistol bought for concealed carry versus a home defense pistol caliber carbine versus a fun rifle caliber range toy will all benefit from certain barrel lengths, even if they aren't returning the highest possible velocity. Basic but accurate ballistic chronographs can be purchased for under $150. Using one of these on the range can enable a shooter to determine the actual velocity from their firearm and cartridge combination. Just make sure not to shoot the chronograph. They don't like that. Have fun and safe shooting.
First up is going to be the chronograph. This little thing right here is awesome.
That about wraps up this segment. If you have any questions for me or suggestions for future segments or a comment on a past segment, please post them on the Assorted Calibers Podcast Facebook or MeWe pages, and Aaron or Weer'd will make sure I see them. I'm also a contributor on the Blue Collar Prepping blog, which can be found at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. Finally, I'm a published author, and books with my stories can be found on Amazon under the names Brena Bock and David Bock. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. I'm David, and this is Gun Lovers and Other Strangers.
So David talks about ideal barrel length, and I will say that if you have an old 22 rifle with like an over 19-inch barrel, like I think I've got like a 21-inch barrel 22, especially with subsonic, but even supersonics are pretty quiet, but subsonics are as quiet as any suppressed rifle could be. They're very hearing safe. And also, yeah, David talks about 10 millimeter out of a carbine. And I got to say, as long as you're not going in the range too long, it's a very ethical deer cartridge. Just the amount of energy that you get out of that once it gets a little bit of room to stretch its legs is quite impressive.
I don't think I've ever shot a 10 millimeter anything.
I mean, they're nice. I mean, it's the power level can be situated between 357 Magnum and 44 Magnum. It's not quite as beefy as a 44, but it's definitely a lot more power than a 357. But because traditionally it's out of a semi-auto pistol and generally a little bit of a bigger one, because essentially it's guns that can chamber 45 ACP. It's about it's about the overall length of a 45 ACP. It's a semi-auto, so you've got the recoil system to help you with the recoil. It generally is about the power level, the recoil of a 357 Magnum handgun.
Okay.
And
well,
also,
when you say
go ahead.
When you say 357, I mean, I don't think you said Magnum. If you did, I missed it.
Yeah. 357 Magnum is
okay.
Well,
it was just, I didn't know if you were, because 10 millimeter is a semi-auto round and 357 Magnum is a revolver round, but there's also 357 SIG, which is a semi-auto round, and I didn't know if you were thinking that.
Yep. No. Definitely the more powerful. It definitely has a little bit more oomph than 357 SIG. I
actually have nothing to add.
Weer'd likes obscure cartridges, and when somebody on the range has one, I'm like, yeah, I want to shoot that obscure cartridge. Got to catch them all, Aaron. All right, so changing gears, the ACP family all loves music. The style of music we love varies greatly, but we all love it. And so Tiny asked me for a segment suggestion, and I said, you know what? You've got a mountain dulcimer. Why don't you tell us about it?
Hello all in ACP land. It's me, Tiny, with another edition of Deep Thoughts from the Land of Rocks and Cows. About a year ago, while talking with David and the rest of the crew, David mentioned or linked something about a mountain dulcimer, and my ADHD was tickled by the concept. I went looking for resources on the instrument that I had never heard of, and it didn't take too much to find out that mountain dulcimers were invented in Appalachia and had a sound that absolutely enthralled me. The fact that one could string it in a way that you didn't have to worry about chords like a guitar and could just move your hand up and down the fretboard and strum to go up and down the scale also made it pretty intriguing. Then I had the brain blast to see if there was any kind of cigar box kits to assemble an instrument of my own. I found a lovely kit online that was laser cut out of plywood and had a pre-fretted neck. Stain, glue, and following directions was a breeze. Put a few layers of stain on the body, then glued that together, then went to work on the neck. Turns out gunstock oil is one of the best things to finish a guitar neck. I bought a tuner, and Weer'd gifted me a songbook for Christmas, and I've been trying to teach myself how to play in my free time ever since. In the show notes, you will find pictures of my dulcimer and links to the kit that I purchased, but if that's a little too much for you, there are all sorts of guides out there to build your own resonator box out of everything from cardboard to spalted maple. And then you buy yourself a pre-fretted neck to attach and finish your instrument. Now I'm going to read a little something about the history of dulcimers. The story of the mountain dulcimer. Long ago in the quiet folds of the Appalachian Mountains, a gentle music took shape. Not in grand concert halls, but in log cabins, front porches, and smoky hollers. It was the sound of the mountain dulcimer, a humble wooden instrument born not of wealth or fame, but of hearth and home. Its roots reach back across the Atlantic, where German and Scotch-Irish immigrants carried with them old melodies and half-remembered instruments like the Scheichelt and Hummel, But the old instruments didn't quite fit the rugged new world. So in mountain workshops and farmhouse corners, hands began to shape something new. A narrow, fretted box of wood strung with just a few strings. Simple enough for anyone to play, yet hauntingly beautiful when the notes rang out. The mountain dulcimer became the voice of the people. It sang ballads and hymns, love songs and laments. It didn't need formal training. It was made for singing along, for playing by ear, for learning from your neighbor or your grandmother. In those isolated hills where winters were long and roads were few, the dulcimer was a companion, light to carry, easy to play, and warm in sound. For many years it stayed tucked away in the mountains, unbeknownst to the rest of the wider world. But in the mid-20th century that changed. A young woman named Jean Ritchie, born into a family of Kentucky ballad singers, carried her dulcimer to the cities and stages of American folk revival. With her soft voice and gentle strumming, she let the dulcimer speak, and people listened. From there, its story spread. Artists experimented, builders innovated, and the dulcimer found its way into modern music, new hands and new hearts. Yet it never lost its roots. Even today, when played in a concert hall or on a back porch, the dulcimer still carries the echoes of the Appalachian valleys. The sound of stories passed down in wood and string.
Tiny Leonard Cohen was a good choice for the music. And I went to a summer camp where the director was a hammer dulcimer player, and God, they are beautiful. And it was on an island off the coast of Maine, and so he was playing a lot of sea shanties on it.
All right, so speaking of sea shanties, and this is just barely relevant to what we're talking about. A group that I really like listening to, and I discovered them, oh dear God, 25 years ago. There's a group called the Pyrates Royale, and they were making the rounds in the Renaissance fairs around Washington, D.C. And so they've got great stage performance. Basically, think of Jacques the Whipper, but it's a pirate crew and singing sea shanties. That level of stage performance. So where's the relevance? Okay, so one of the instruments they have is the hammered dulcimer, but they call it the kindling, because the joke being you have a dulcimer and you hammer it, it breaks and it's just usable as kindling. I thought it was funny. I don't care if you think it is. But
it's also a giant chunk of wood to make a hammer dulcimer, because essentially it's just a giant board of the different tones. So yeah.
But if you like sea shanties, and I know Weer'd does, look them up.
I will definitely have to look them up. I was wondering if you were going to mention my favorite sea shanty group, and that is the out of Newfoundland, Canada, Great Big Sea. Also look them up, and you know what? We should throw some samples in the show notes, Aaron.
Okay. I don't know if the Pyrates are on YouTube.
We'll figure it out. I'm sure they are. Everything's on YouTube. If we're on YouTube, then they're on YouTube, Aaron.
This is recent, because I'm looking at this, and they say this album was last updated February of this year. So I guess they've decided to finally join the century of the fruit bat and be on YouTube.
Good for them. And that also means that I can listen to it while this episode is rendering.
So, Weer'd. You know who else can do other things while listening to the episode?
Our listeners. I mean,
Yes.
I mean, it's well known. That's one of the joys of podcasts. So many creators do video format now, and but the thing about video format, you can't watch YouTube videos while you're driving to work. You can't watch videos while you're mowing your lawn, and that's what makes podcasts great. So thank you so much to our lovely listeners. But also, we have to give very special thanks to our supporters on Patreon. So you go to Patreon, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers podcast to sign up. Patrons get an early release of the podcast, plus bonus content like our hilarious blooper reels, the ACP film tracks, and the ACP mag dump.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts and Pocket Casts. Subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I've got a blog, which is weerdworld.com, weerdworld.com, and hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can get more from me at Linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette, all one word.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our music.
He listens to ska and dubstep, whereas I listen to actual music. Our tastes are assorted, greatly in this case, and so is our podcast. Good night, everyone.